Oh my gosh, I won! Sorry, Pie. No hard feelings, right?
Sure can do.
Yay! Here you go, funny plant!
Wait, Cake, no!
Huh? Price tag, what's wrong?
Cake safe with 4,941 votes. Cake is out with 3,193 votes.
Cake is my favourite character from the BFDI series, so it sucks to see how often he's disregarded by the writers and seen as irrelevant by fans of the show. I often see his whole character being dumbed down to a loser simp or just a shy, naive background character, but I think that this is fully untrue. So this video should go over a few things, being the history of Cake as a character, his improvements in Teapot and the arc that you may have not noticed, and the missed potential of his character, along with a few other things at the end. So, without further ado, let's get into the full essay, why I think Cake is the best character in Battle for Dream Island. Cake's origins as a possible contestant for BFDI started in the BFDIA vote, where he looked quite different to his current design. Even with the prominent role of Cake at stake in Season 1, he does not receive enough votes to join BFDIA, ending his BFDIA journey. Or is it? You see, in September of 2023, Carrie and Michael decided that they would bring BFDIA back, which meant some more Cake scenes. It's very limited, and some of it is questionable.
I don't remember Cake being so wide.
I'm not wide.
But since these episodes came out way after BFB, I'm gonna cover it later. But there is still some interesting stuff to go over. Cake's first ever scene as a contestant in BFB is a very memorable and impactful one. You can see a piece of his cream at the bottom right hand of the screen. Yep. This here is Cake's true first scene. I'll play it now.
Oh my gosh, I won! Sorry, Pie. No hard feelings, right?
Whatever, you win some, you lose some.
Now that's a good way to look at it.
This is a short scene, but there is a few things that we can gather about Cake here. He shows a sort of lack of confidence in the fact that he is surprised about winning. He shows that he is apologetic and caring when he asks Pie if there are hard feelings about his win. And he also shows himself to be a bit shy in the way that he acts and talks. While this is an uneventful and boring introduction to his character, it does show what he's going to be like for most of the series, and that shows that he's quite a consistent character. That is his only proper scene until the team picking, but when that happens, we get to see one of the most notable things about his character. Loser. Say what you will about Loser, but you cannot lie that he made a massive impact on the reputation of some BFB pre-split characters. And what better example of that than Cake?
Oh, Loser, what an honor it is to be on your team!
A lot of people would say that this is a bad or annoying character trait that he has, but I personally think that it adds to his character and his development over the series. Cake is part of a trio I would consider Loser's biggest supporters. Most of these guys' character traits revolve around Loser, and they all did equally as good in Teapot. While Cake wasn't very Loser-centric in the early episodes, he also didn't really do much. This was definitely a problem for a lot of characters in early pre-split, and although Cake had a few good scenes, there was nothing really impactful that made him an interesting character. The start of him becoming a more defined character was in BFB 6, but you can definitely see him attach himself to Loser a lot.
Loser, I can't handle this anymore! Save our team from this torment of the twinkle!
I know a lot of people think that this is an annoying trait for him to have, but personally, I believe that it adds more to the complexity of his character and makes his story later on become so much more impactful. The wiki states that Cake is a dependent person who relies on Loser for support, and I can get that. I would also say that he's pretty sensitive, and also loyal too, although willing to turn his back if he feels betrayed, such as when Loser lied in BFB 7. or when Eggy betrays his and Clock's friendship in Teapot 1. These character traits are what make Cake a lot more real than a lot of the cast, and I can see him being quite a relatable character too. Even with his limited screen time in the first few episodes, he's already cemented himself as an enjoyable character with realistic traits, even if it is quite subtle throughout the whole series, which is a reoccurring theme in his character. Moving on to BFB 7, we get the infamous loser lying scene.
Hey guys, Loser in the house!
Loser!
I love those! I used to play with them all the time!
Loser, these toys were just invented. You said you used to play with them. An hour ago, they didn't exist. They weren't invented yet. You couldn't have been playing with them if they didn't exist. That is a lie. You lied to us, Loser. Why did you do that? Why did you intentionally tell us something that was made up? Why did you lie to us, Loser?
This will have an impact on Cake's character, but we have to go over the elimination first. Cake does end up receiving quite a low amount of votes, although that may be because he went quite under the radar last episode. Still shows that he isn't hated. While Cake doesn't seem to have any issue with Loser at the elimination, we get this interesting scene later on in the episode.
He's gone for a reason!
While this scene may make Cake's character seem inconsistent and whiny, it's actually a lot deeper than you think. While Cake is clingy and afraid of betrayal, he isn't afraid to turn his back on people, and in this case, he turns his back on Loser, thinking he's a bad influence for lying. This remains consistent when you see him not supporting Loser coming back, when you think he'd be at the forefront, and not caring about leaving Loser in BFB when he leaves for Teapot. And now begins a new era in Cake's character, one without Loser. You can still see his reliance on Loser's show, but he becomes more independent and his own character throughout the episodes. The first signs of this are in BFB 8, in a pivotal moment for Cake's character.
Sure, Loser helped push the energy along, but ultimately, the energy came from within you.
Pin's right, you know.
Which means you've still got it. So, Cake, push that buzzer.
Yeah! Oh no, I can't! I just can't!
Cake, just do it.
Yeah! Glue!
Correct.
Apart from having this unnecessary scene, this is pivotal to the development of Cake, showing that he's able to do things independently without Loser. And it is the start of his slow and subtle arc about leaving Loser behind and becoming his own person. While he doesn't do anything in BFB 9, I mean, who did? There is an important scene we have to note in BFB 10.
Pin! Believe in the loser in you!
You're right.
You can see that in this scene, Cake is able to encourage Pin to remake 4, using the same advice that Pin gave him in the 8th episode. This further shows Cake's growing confidence and independence, being able to encourage his team and speak his mind without Loser supporting him. This goes back to the point of the majority of people having Cake as just a Loser simp in their opinion. Although Loser is mentioned by Cake here, there's no mindless Loser support since BFB 6, which is the only episode that really focused on that. Cake's important scenes like this one really seem to go under the radar, which is really a shame, as he becomes so much more enjoyable and interesting if you look at him closer. When I first watched BFB, I saw him as a mid-tier character, as a lot of scenes don't have much focus on him and are ignored in the grand scheme of things, which is a problem with his general writing, as he is not given very much spotlight, which makes his character harder to understand. I can assure you that Cake is not a bad character, and the complexity of him and how he changes over the course of the series really makes him an enjoyable character. If you rewatch BFB and focus on him closer, there are a lot of small things that you're able to pick up, which makes him a lot more interesting and enjoyable. However, there are times when his writing is a bit weird, and I can see why it's a bit controversial. Which brings us to...
Loser's spirit is commanding me to go in as well! Yeah, well, my spiritual connection with
the scene where him and Aggie are fighting over what they should do for the challenge is the only scene where I have actively disliked his writing. In the scene, he starts going on about his spiritual connection with Loser, which undoes a lot of the previously started arc of being more independent from Loser. I can try and justify his actions by saying that he was trying to lead his team to victory and encouraging them with the image of their idol, Loser. Him doing this and trying to make a leadership role is actually a good step for his character in my opinion, but the way it's handled just makes me feel unsatisfied. Not only this, but they added a random fight scene he had with Aggie, which seems to have no purpose except for to gather more hate for those two. So, great. Here in BFB 14, we get quite an overlooked scene for Cake's character. While it doesn't develop him as much and the focus isn't really on him, it's still some stuff to note. Remember that the BFB wiki states that Cake is easily frightened. In this scene, lava is surrounding Cake, Woody, and Nayli with no escape apart from the deprecated garbage chute. After Nayli and Cake realize there's no way of fitting into the garbage chute, they end up destroying Woody, sacrificing themselves in the process. While this doesn't continue the independence from Luther's thing, it shows that he's become a lot braver and is willing to sacrifice himself for the people around him. This does also show that Cake is becoming a lot more braver, as before he wouldn't even be able to buzz in without Loser, and now he's willing to sacrifice himself to the lava for Woody without showing any signs of fear. It's a small thing and probably not intentional, but it is still interesting to think about. BFB 15 doesn't have much impact for Cake's character, so BFB 16 is the end of Cake's BFB journey, as he switches to Teapot, officially leaving Loser, and starting his better season. Now, I've been talking about Cake BFB for 11 minutes and 22 seconds, which is more than his screen time in BFB, but whatever. But moving on to Teapot, there will be a lot more to go over, due to Teapot developing more of its contestants. And even though Cake still doesn't have that much content compared to some others, there is still a lot more to go over. Cake's first important Teapot scene comes from this interaction with Clock and Aggie, where Clock and Aggie decide to go separate ways due to Clock wanting to be with Winner and Aggie not caring about it. Cake is distressed about this due to him losing his friends. Cake feels especially betrayed that Aggie says that their friendship was meaningless, so Cake now has no one to talk to, starting his Teapot arc where he makes new friends. He forms a small friendship with Nayli and ends up being part of the best Teapot team, just not. While Cake does seem to be a lot more active in this episode, he doesn't really have much impact. What I have mentioned a lot that does occur over Teapot is Cake's development arc, where he's able to become his own person, be more independent, help out his team, and make new friends. It is very subtle, so I wouldn't blame you for not noticing it, but it is really interesting to pick up on how many things Cake improves on us throughout the series. Teapot 2 is probably Cake's best episode of the whole series, not because of his development in this episode, but just because of how genuinely entertaining he is. While they probably found it hard to mix his arc with being funny earlier on, this does it perfectly. You are still able to see him become more confident, being able to work with his team and stand up for himself. And even if there's not too much development, it's still a nice break and just getting to enjoy Cake as a funny character. I wish Teapot writing was still like this. Teapot 3 is Cake's first episode with a new writer, and I can honestly say he's written pretty well. Even in the first scene, we get signs of Cake being more social towards people like Needle and Donut. And I know I've been saying that a lot, but it's what's happening. In this challenge, he's able to suggest an idea to his team, and even if it doesn't work out too well for them in the end, it still ends up helping them out. Even if it's not much, just looking back to his BFB days being so dependent on Loser, this is a massive step up. Cake helping his team now in the future is another thing that goes quite unnoticed. So, starting to see a pattern here. While I don't praise challenge strength as a good character trait, I'm just displaying this to show that Cake is becoming better as a character. He wouldn't be able to do this much helping and socializing back in BFB, but he is able to now. It's a shame Just Not barely got any focus in the early Teapot episodes and basically got wiped out by Teapot 10. In my opinion, they're the team with the best dynamics and the best characters. At the start of Teapot 4, we see Cake now talking to his team and hanging out with them on top of their roller coaster, instead of just talking to the other teams like Needle and Teapot 3. I'll stop talking as much about the social and independent stuff, because I've been mentioning that a lot, but there is still something important to note in Teapot 4. At the end of the episode, Cake picks up an apparently cursed droplet of water from a yellow-faced skeleton. While this may seem like a setup, it actually gives him enough sympathy votes to survive his first elimination. And although it's a weirdly handled scene, I appreciate it. To be fair, it doesn't add much to Cake's character, although you can see him desperately trying to refix the flower at the end, showing that he's really desperate to win the challenge for his team and not let them down. This does, like I mentioned, put him up for elimination, however he does end up surviving, fortunately. Teapot 5, we see Cake once again trying to help his team, probably trying to make up for his loss in the last challenge. He really didn't do much that episode, but he's still funny nonetheless. This episode does kind of start a trend where they, kill him every episode though, so... Cake gets quite a lot of screen time in Teapot 6, which is really good. He gets his second opening scene, which is very good for a character as of Teapot 6. This is a really good episode for Just Not due to the journey that they have, and their idea to slay a dragon was actually Cake's idea, so props to him for that. That's 3 challenges that he's helped with. Cake does show that he still gets anxious easily, which is a fine character trait for him to have at this point, as he's overcome a lot of stuff. So I'm sure he'll be able to overcome his anxiousness, right? Right? Oh yeah, and he dies again by the same way, so, okay.
So, are you gonna finish that?
So, something very weird happens in Teapot 7, because you can see a character called Cake on the voting screen at the end, but that's kind of weird, because there was no character called Cake who appeared in the episode. Yes, because in the one particular episode Just Not is up for elimination, Cake doesn't do anything. He doesn't have any impact to the team, he doesn't help him, he doesn't have any meaningful interactions, he's suddenly just gone from the episode. And suddenly, a lot of the less interesting characters on Just Not, like Taggy and Bommy, start doing a lot more. So it almost seems like they didn't want to do anything with Cake anymore, so just gave him little screen time so that he would be set up for elimination. And it's really annoying how little screen time he got here and what eventually happened, because there was so much more you could do with Cake's character, but they just didn't do anything with it, and that caused his elimination in the next episode. And I just can't look back and call this a good episode like everyone else does, because of how dirty they did Cake here. And the voting results display this. Cake barely breaks 3,000, while the others are way ahead, over 4,000. And the worst part of this is, I didn't even vote Cake here. I voted Rocky, because I thought Cake would definitely be safe, and they both got out. What the Okay, I definitely got a bit mad there. But I just really don't like how they handled Cake here, which leads to his elimination in the next episode. But we do get this when Cake does get eliminated.
High five, Cakey!
Oh my cake factory! I thought I was gonna make it a lot further! I really wanted that limitless power. But Just Not, I have to say, it was great being on a team, not just in Loser's Shadow. It was fun to just play, for us! I wish you all luck!
What we do get here is a pretty decent standoff, where Cake acknowledges his growth as a person, and how he's become more independent. It's a good handled elimination, and I'm glad that they were able to end his character off in a satisfying way. Still wish he didn't get eliminated here, but...
Whoops, I forgot to turn my teleporting power on. I'll recover him and send him to the right place later. Sorry for making that weird.
Why can't they treat Cake like it?
And that's my recap of Cake's journey over his 2 seasons. It's a shame what happened at the end there, but I hope that with this analysis, you can see the development of Cake over time, and what makes him such a great character. But even with all this in mind, you may still be wondering, what makes him such an appealing character? So I'm going to go over why exactly I like Cake here, and I'll get some opinions from a few other people. Is Cake the funniest character? I could say so, but no. Is Cake the most entertaining character? Most would say no. But is Cake the best written character? That I can make a point for. While a lot of arcs in BFDI are quite messy, Cake's arc ends up really clean, and although he does get set up a bit at the end, it's a satisfying arc. Cake's arc is quite a subtle one, like I've mentioned a few times, because it's just a solo arc about him becoming more independent and letting go of Loser. And when you really take a look at it, it's probably the best character growth of the series. If you don't fully understand Cake's arc, here's a dumbed down version of it. Cake is a massive Loser supporter, but turns his back on him after Loser does something to betray his fans' trust. Over time, he learns to be more independent and social, becoming his own person, and at the end of his elimination, he acknowledges it. It may sound simple, but it's interesting to look back and see all the details about this arc. I do think there was a lot more they could do with this though, like him overcoming his fear of stuff, and also it would have been really interesting to see him compete in the merge without a team to support him. Hopefully there will be a rejoin opportunity and it won't be remote, as it would be great to see a fully fleshed out version of Cake's character. On top of his great writing, Cake is just a genuinely entertaining character. Him trying to fend off people from the stack in Teapot 2 or trying to get the narration to stop in Teapot 6 genuinely made me laugh. The fact people don't realize how funny Cake is as a character is mind-blowing. Cake is easily the most entertaining in Just Not, and definitely top 5 funniest of the whole show. His limited screen time probably hurts us, but even with that, he's still really great. I don't think there's a single time that he's on screen where I haven't enjoyed his character. Of course, there's a few more less important reasons why Cake is a good character in my opinion. Cake is a cute character. I think that cute characters are generally looked down upon in the community, with cases like Rocky and Grassy. But since Cake actually does stuff, I think it just makes him a more endearing character. Cake also has, in my opinion, the coolest asset of any BFDI character. He's not just a rectangular cake, as you can see from above that he's actually a sliced piece of cake. These two things aren't very important, but they still make Cake a better character in my eyes. I think from this you can tell why I like Cake so much. So I'm gonna interview another person and ask what they like about Cake as a character, to get a different point of view on what makes him such a great character. Hello, veteran. Good to talk to you. What do you like about Cake as a character?
Okay, well, I've always been neutral towards Cake until I started to really, get attached to him in Teapot 2. I like how he can be awkward a lot of times. I think that, really makes him feel like more of a character. And he can get, very emotional and passionate about many things, especially when his old teammates leave him and he has to go it alone. Another thing, I really enjoy how he's able to grow out of a loser's shadow, like he said in his elimination speech, into his own, more of his own person, and he's a contributor to his team.
Okay, those are some good points. How do you think he was handled overall in his seasons?
Well, in BFB, his biggest role was just being Loser's #1 fan, which, I mean, it wasn't a very fulfilling role for him on his own, but I think it was good for his Teapot season, where he was completely on his own until he formed friendships with the rest of his team. But however, in Teapot, he didn't really get much focus, and then it got really bad in his elimination episode. But I'm really happy that they gave him a little elimination speech instead of just sending him away, and I think that speech does good for his character.
Yeah, I get that. Any thoughts on Cake as a potential contender for a rejoin?
Cake, well, I have people who I prefer over Cake to rejoin, but Cake as a rejoiner, I would definitely enjoy that. Although, I would also be very happy with him appearing in another season instead of rejoin.
Okay. Any final things to say?
Cake should have survived over Price Stag and arguably Bobby in the second Just Not elimination.
Okay. I definitely think it was interesting hearing Veteran's point of view on Cake as a character. We agreed on quite a lot of stuff, like how he was handled in Teapot and him being quite a realistic character. However, he did think some different stuff to me, like how he thought that BFB's Cake was bad, which made Teapot's Cake better. It's interesting how many different ways there are to view and interpret Cake. As shown here, the majority opinion is that Cake is just quite an average character, but I've collected some opinions from Cake fans and haters to see some thoughts about them. Carmen says, I personally feel neutral towards Cake, but I do feel the potential he has to become a fan favourite. Me personally, I'd like them to expand his relationship with Eggy, which can also give her some much needed screen time. But I want all of that in a later season because I'm #Team Remote to rejoin. So, ignoring that really awful bit at the end, I could definitely see him having some interesting conflict with Eggy, which would help both characters' screen time and popularity go up. I think it would be interesting for them both to be on the same team and have conflicting beliefs about how the team should be managed. With actually good writing and not like that one scene in BFB 13. It could be a bit like the donut and golf ball rivalry, where maybe Cake would try and value teamwork and some more out there strategies, whereas Eggy may try and come up with something more logical. It would be a fun dynamic between two quite underappreciated characters, so I would totally be all for this. Bobbert says, annoying as hell with his voice. While looking at the opinions, I saw a lot of people suggesting an arc with Eggy being good. I never really thought about this before, but there's a lot of characters who I think Cake could have an interesting arc with. It would make a lot more sense for Taggy to be replaced with Cake in the book Taggy Friendship. It'd also be interesting to see him interact with someone like Clock or maybe even like Winner. It would have been great to see him in the team swap interacting with a whole new team, as unfortunately in Teapot, most of the people just interacted with their own team. And it wasn't too bad in this case because Just Not is a really fun team, but it would have been more interesting if there were friendships outside of teams. Me personally, if Cake lasted longer in Teapot, I would love to see him become more brave and confident. It would be really fun to see him on a team like Cloud J or Death Pact yet again. Seeing him make new dynamics and deal with the chaos of those teams would be really entertaining and good for his character. The rejoin is the final thing I want to talk about for now. I know there are a lot of popular contenders for the rejoin like Puffball and Remote, which pretty much guarantees that Cake has no shot of rejoining, but I genuinely believe that Cake would be the best rejoin option. Cake deserves to grow as a character and interact with more people, along with overcoming some of his weaknesses, but it would also be great to see him in the merge type situation where he has to work independently. I hope this analysis may have swayed some voters to consider voting for Cake. Also, because I really don't want Remote to rejoin, there are way better options. It really is a shame that people haven't really noticed Cake's development and still just consider him a loser simp. So I hope if he ever gets the opportunity to compete again, he can have more episodes like his Teapot 2 and Teapot 6 self, as I really think this could cement him as a fan favourite. He's a realistic character with a lot of traits and flaws who has grown a lot over time. Just comparing his BFB and Teapot self, he seems like a completely different character. And I really hope that his fanbase can grow over time. Because as of right now, he's definitely one of the most underappreciated characters of the show. I hope this video has been able to show some of the good in Cake's character. I really wish he would get more love, as he really went through a lot of growth and has a lot of personality and entertainment value. It'd be great to see what opinions some of you guys have about Cake, so if you have any, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I would love to see him compete again in Teapot for a rejoin, and if not, I'd love to see him in a Season 6 or any other competition seasons. He's a deep and interesting character, and it's really unfortunate what happened to him in his writing in Teapot 7, and I really do believe that he deserves a second chance. I'll probably make a follow-up video or two about this, explaining some more detailed stuff like why Cake should rejoin. He's got so many charming personality traits that I'm surprised most people consider him a mid-character. And I really do hope this video has convinced some of you that Cake is one of the best characters in the series. If any of you have any ideas or suggestions for what I could talk about in another Cake video, then you can comment it or type it in the Discord server. It's great to know what other Cake fans think of his character. And that's the end of the video. If you watched to this point, thank you. It's been a lot of fun making this, and I hope that it's been an enjoyable watch and has maybe changed your perspective. This was edited and written completely by myself, but I'd like to thank Veteran for making an appearance in this and sharing his opinions on Cake. Also to Carmen and G4J for sharing their opinions on Cake, which I responded to earlier in the video, even if some of their points were, Of course, thanks to Jack and Jellify for writing the character of Cake, even if it had some flaws in its writing. Teapot 7. I get he can't appeal to everyone, but he does to me, and he's my favorite. So, I'm right, you're wrong, you can stop watching now. I've been told if I upload this, and I'm gonna become the next person on YouTube. Please don't do that. Please.